We're absolutely reducing funding to the UN and to the various foreign aid programs, including those run by the UN and other agencies. That should come as a surprise to no one who watched the campaign. The President said specifically hundreds of times, you covered him, I'm going to spend less money on people overseas and more money on people back home. And that's exactly what we're doing with this budget.
Yes, it is. President Trump's America First budget calling for major cuts to the United Nations. And he wants to slash funding to foreign aid as well. Former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations is John Bolton. He joins us now. John, there is a separate budget for peacekeeping at the United Nations. At the moment, we contribute 28% of it. We want to cut that to 25%. How do you feel about cutting the peacekeeping budget?
Well, I think it's certainly doable at the levels suggested, because a lot of these peacekeeping operations have essentially a perpetual life and become part of the problem. They're not moving to solve the problem that they were set up to deal with. They're helping to perpetuate it. So I think this notion that, oh my goodness, if we don't spend on peacekeeping, we'll have to spend it through our defense budget is absolutely wrong, and therefore I think substantial savings can be made.
Now, there is the main budget at the UN, which pays for staffing and headquarters and that kind of thing. We provide 22% of that budget, more than anybody else, and we want to cut that. Are you okay with cutting that portion of the UN's budget?
Absolutely. Look, there are a lot of UN programs that we should not see our budget cut in some of the specialized agencies. We'd have to look at how these figures work out. But one of the reasons I said over 20 years ago that if you lost 10 stories of the UN building in New York, it wouldn't make a bit of difference, is because that's 10 stories less of bureaucrats. And there's no governmental or intergovernmental institution in the world that can't see its budget cut with limited effect.
Now, if you want to cut domestic spending in America, you've got to get that through Congress. That's understood. If you want to cut the UN's budget, can you just do it just like that without reference to Congress?
No, Congress has to do it. But look, I think this should be part of a larger effort to move all of UN funding for U.S. funding for international organizations to a purely voluntary basis. No more assessed contributions, which in effect are taxes on the United States. I will say I would protect the U.S. bilateral foreign aid program. If you've got to take cuts, I'd take them in the multilateral development banks and in the UN programs. I'd keep as much of the bilateral programs as we could, although they can certainly be reformed too.
Well, throughout this program, we've talked about the difficulty of cutting any domestic spending program. Do you think that UN budget cuts would pass relatively easily? Because I'm sure they're popular.
Yes, no, I think they would pass relatively easily. And, you know, we don't know what the fate of this budget on domestic or international programs will be. But I say those who want to continue to create the kind of deficits that we've seen and the addition to the national debt, let's have that debate. I give Trump a lot of credit for following through on what he said to increase the military budget. If anything, I'd increase it more and cut the other spending more. But he's off to an excellent start. Let's have this debate. I think I know where the American people will come out on it.
Sure. John Bolton, thank you very much for joining us, sir. Appreciate it.